Hi everyone, this is Penguin Trades. This is a review for the ES and the NQ futures for August 19th. So usually I start off with the ES, but I'm actually going to flip over to the NQ. I'm just going to answer a question that someone asked on the website, and then we'll go through both the days like normal. So here on the NQ, this is our overnight high, this is our overnight low. For those who don't know, these are our key levels. And so right around here, someone was asking about going long right here. And notice that you have this trend line that price is bouncing right off of. Obviously, you have that on both sides here. And so they wanted to go long right here, and they did, and they got stopped out because this right here, as you can see, this bar that closes above the EMA doesn't trigger. So they went in like this, right above that green bar, and then price went very close, but then obviously, as you can see, it shot down. So the reason I don't like this right here is because you have to consider, one, that there's a bearish imbalance. So they started off with this big downtrend, break, and then this is our first attempt lower. This is our second attempt lower, and so this is, the failure at a new low. You have two legs down there. It's off the key entry point, but you do have to consider that you do still have stemming from the overnight low, because the downtrend is not the only major structure here. The overnight low level is a major key level itself. And so you have this uptrend that's pushing off of it. You have a break and then a push up to a new high. This is a two-legged move. You have two attempts to reach the other side from stemming the overnight low here. And so you just have to consider that that is a sign of a bearish imbalance. You're making, this first attempt higher, the second attempt is not getting as high, and you're getting a sharp pushback below, and then you have this trend line going down. Now, as far as going long here, I think it's perfectly fine to look for a long, but you are, entering here, you are pushing your target very high. Not only are you pushing it past this right here, which, you're taking it off of this trend line right here, so it's support, you have to expect that this is resistance. Now, oftentimes, I don't mind pushing it out a little bit on a trade that has very good context, but this one in particular, you're not only pushing it past this by several points, also past this high right here. So that's two things right there to consider that you're pushing it through. This is forming a wedge. I don't really care about. I don't think of it as a triangle or a wedge. I just think of it as competing channels. There's a channel going up here and a channel going down, and it just looks like a wedge because it's the bulls trying to make an uptrend and the bears trying to make a downtrend, and so that's the way I view it. And so eventually, as it keeps consolidating, it's going to break out on one side, and considering the bearish imbalance in the overall range, I would not expect it to push through both of those levels. So that's why I don't like going long right there. And so yeah, anyway, I'm going to go back to the ES here. I just wanted to kind of answer that really quick, so that way it doesn't get, the specific answer doesn't get lost in the middle of the video. So hopping over to the ES now. So this is our overnight high. This is our overnight low. These are our key levels for the day. I started trading at 8 Central Time, which is this area right here. So notice that we have this uptrend, break, and then price immediately pushes up to a new high. So at this point, the uptrend is considered played out as a break to a new high, and then price attempts to reverse, but ends up making a double bottom and pushing up. Now notice that, with a wick it did reset, but with those bodies it's higher, and clearly this is just a two-legged move up here. So uptrend, break, and then two pushes up to a new high. It's extremely typical for price to play out that way. Even if it makes the new extreme on the first leg, it's, it doesn't matter. Second entries happen all over the place. Price literally just moves in pairs of twos because of human psychology. People attempt things once, they try again, and then they give up. And that's why you get second entry failures all over the place. And so, anyway, uptrend, break, two pushes up to a new high, right at that measured move right there, which I did stem this measured move from there because clearly that's where the leg stemmed from in this move right here. A lot of times if you get a big wick, out the other side, the real leg starts from the body. Bodies are bigger picture than wicks. That might be confusing for some people, but sometimes, you can see right here, this is clearly acting as a higher low. You have your two clear legs up right there, and right at the measured move, perfectly at the overnight high, price immediately makes a couple attempts to reverse. It really goes sideways for a bit, and then these are our two clear attempts to reverse, and then only after those two clear legs does price sharp push back up. So I hope that's clear right there. It's just good to not overthink it. So, sometimes you can draw it off the wick and then it'll react, and then if it doesn't react, then you can move it to the body and just see where it reacts. but this is very commonly how it works out. So anyway, it ticks off the overnight high, literally just meets it to the tick, and then immediately starts pushing lower here. And so, we fade back into this little range. We kind of had it a little bit lower at first, and we had this little breakout, price fading back in, but I did extend it up to there. And so we push back in, we have this lower high right here. And as you can see, I did like trying to get in this area right here. At first it was struggling to get back below the EMA, but when we got this red bar just pushing down below, closing on its low, again pushing off of this measured move and the overnight high back into this range right here, this looks good for a limit order to ride it to the other side. And so as you can see, no fill, doesn't come back. This bar opens on the low and then just continues to plummet down, so there's just no chance really. So anyway, we find resistance right here. We have our first leg down, price pushes back up a bit, we get our second attempt down. So from the overnight high, we have 2 attempts to reverse, and then as soon as that second attempt reaches these lows, price shoots back up, pushing back up to the overnight high. And if we had continued pushing out here, I'd just like to see a couple legs back retesting the overnight high on the top to look for a long, because if you break out, you need to see 2 attempts to fade before buying the breakout. You don't want to just buy the breakout because you're getting a bullish bar closing out. I see it didn't tick above there, but imagine just trying to buy because it's closing out. That's not how it works. Price tends to fade back in. It fades back in the overnight levels, the range levels, especially right here, because you'd be breaking out of an overnight level and a range at the same time. So a reversal pattern would be more likely. What I'd like to see here is actually price push out more, and then, assuming it doesn't give you 2 clear legs holding on top, if you fade back in, if you'd pushed out more, you'd have more room to set up a clear failed second entry for a short, to get in on the fade. So anyway, we push on lower here. It doesn't offer us that. It just plummets on down, breaks out the low of this range right here, and then fades back up. Really no entries on the way up. You did just make a new high, and you have this sharp push down. You need to wait for this to play out. You want to see a push up, a couple attempts down. That way this downtrend is considered played out at that point. But instead, price just shoots on up, makes this little symmetry move here. Notice it's, from here, we had a very sharp spike down, sharpest spike throughout the whole day. There was this in the overnight, but since the session started, this was our biggest move, and then it immediately made a symmetrical move back up, only to fizzle out right at it. Now, it was at the overnight high, but that's where it stemmed from, so you can see that there's a symmetry pattern there. And then price starts to go a little bit sideways here, and then finally we push on out. Again, if we just push out, get a couple legs back, retesting the overnight high, that could give us a great long, because again, we'd have our 2 attempts to fade, which means that we'd be able to get in on a failure entry. And so anyway, it doesn't happen. It just continues on up to the measured move. Now, I just want to mention here, one thing that is a common mistake, and every now and then I make this mistake. I made this mistake today. I'm going to show really quick. And it's a very easy mistake to make, which is forgetting to move your measured move. So you see here, this is at first I have it right here, and then push up, and then this is a clear break, and then you can put it to there. But then eventually, as it didn't push higher and then it had a sharper break, that's when I extended it to like this. However, it's very common to not catch that and to accidentally leave it right here and then draw something like this. So you have this push up, and then, it just kind of blanks your mind that it went higher and you need to extend the measured move, and then you still copy it over. I did that today, accidentally leaving it. So, it's just important to understand. Luckily I caught it rather quick, but, that's just one thing I want to point out. I noticed I made that mistake today, so I thought I'd share to help it prevent it for you. So anyway, this is the measured move right here. Price pushing on up to it. Let me put that line back. I don't know why I removed that. There we go. Just make it navy blue. There we go. So anyway, we push on up here. Like I said, I like to see a couple attempts down, but we push on up to the measured move, and then we start going into this range. We push on through it, push back down, push back up again, push back down. No entries at this point. It's just chopping up and down between the measured move level. The bulls want to reverse at the measured move, but clearly there is some type of there's some bullishness going on, because there's clearly a fight right here. Because whenever you're going sideways, all that means is there's a lot of bulls and a lot of bears at the same time. And so the bulls want to continue the breakout, the bears want to fade back down at this measured move. And so anyway, starting from here, you just get this first entry long. That's not enough. Again, it's just a first entry. That's just not enough. you need to see legs of 2. And so we push on up again, we get a couple legs up here, and then starting from here we have this first entry. From the low count it is a failed second entry, but considering the area that it's at, measured move met, it's very likely to reverse. So seeing this failed second entry that already has 2 legs pushing up is definitely not a good looking trade to take. It might have made 1-to-1 here, but it doesn't matter. Overall this is a bad looking trade due to the overall context area, the measured move is met, common reversal area. And so if price had pushed above, and if you push above a measured move level, you can get a couple legs back retesting it to continue higher. But this is just one leg retesting it, and it doesn't make up for it, the fact that it's a failed second entry, because it's not an ideal failed second entry. It's not a push above with 2 legs back. It's an uptrend with a break and a new high already, and then an attempt to reverse. So it's just not good for a failed second entry, especially at the context area. So anyway, nothing for me there, and then nothing for me on the way down either. Nothing on the ES at all, actually. It was just this no fill right here. And so that's just how it is on days like this. But let's just continue. So we push on lower here. Great place to get a reversal pattern, because we're at the measured move. We can expect price to attempt to fade the overnight high. So if you push lower and get a couple legs back, making a failed second entry reversal pattern, this is a perfect place for it. Literally just a couple legs back, forming a failed second entry. We have perfect context for this. It just doesn't occur for us. So anyway, it pushes on up here. We're at the channel high again. When you come off one side of a channel, you can expect price to attempt to reach the other side, very similarly to in a range. Like, channels and ranges are very similar. In a range, you come off one side, you can expect price to attempt to reach the other side, often in the form of 2 legs. And the same thing with a channel. When you come off one side, you can expect price to reach the other side. The only difference is that channels obviously have a bias, So a range is more likely to, bounce back and forth without any, particular favor of, the bull or bear. But, trends are obviously different, but they still have the same, they're still similar in terms of they are support and resistance level. You come off the high, you can expect price to push down to the low, even though you're in an uptrend. It doesn't mean it's just going to keep on continuing higher forever. And so, anyway, these areas right here, when you're coming off the high of a trend, relatively close to the overnight high, these are great opportunities for reversals, because it's not like the day is taken off. It's still basically just 2 legs up for the day. It still has the capacity to fade this overnight level and continue, going sideways. It's not like it's a runaway trend day. So this is a great place to get a reversal pattern. You can still get one here. If you push below, a couple legs back, the only thing you need to know is that you need room to the other side. Obviously, with this channel here, there's tons of room to the other side, but that's not always the case. Say that the trend was like this. I know it's obviously cutting through all the price action here, but let's just say the channel was like this. You could still get a failed second entry, but there's a lot less room, and so you would need to be careful and make sure that you're entering with room, maybe use a limit order. And so anyway, it's just important to understand that stuff. We could get a reversal pattern very similarly to what's drawn out here, right here. And so, just keep that in mind. You could also get 2 major legs down, retesting the overnight low, the overnight high. And, it could even meet at this intersecting part right here. It's, if you mix key entry points, then, that can be very powerful. So anyway, I'm going to hop over to the NQ now. I'm going to go over that. So we have our high up here, overnight low down here, key levels for the day. Again, I started trading at 8 Central Time, this area right here, just as we were pushing on lower. And you have this push up, break. I should first start off with this right here, obviously. We have this downtrend, break, and a new low. So this downtrend is considered played out. And after it plays out, price pushes on up here, and this swing gives us our overnight low level. So we push on up here, very sharp leg up, we get a break, we can expect price to attempt a new high. At this point though, price has already pushed below the EMA. I didn't like any shorts on the way down. There's nothing super clear. Right here, you can see that from this high, you have first entry long, second entry long failure. Now, this little downtrend did already play out with a break to a new low, and then it rushed above the EMA. Even though it did end up holding below, it's not an ideal reversal pattern, especially just after having a very sharp leg up right there. It's a very steep leg. So I wanted to see something more clear, a push lower with 2 legs back, clearly holding below, not making a new low and then having a pretty decent push up right there. It's just not ideal. So it's just not perfectly safe given the context. So we push on lower here, we continue into this downtrend, and then we start pushing up here. So it's uptrend, break. This whole thing is the break. Even though there's a lot of legs in here, this whole trend is the break, and then this is the start of the second leg up. Uptrend, break, and then first push up to a new high, and we get this little break right here. And I'm going to move this for a sec just so you can see. So from this low here, we have first entry short, second entry short, failure. This is a lot smaller picture than what I'd like usually, but you can still clearly see it. You can see the first leg down, there's a break, and a second leg down, it's holding. And the reason I like this so much is because this uptrend, since it's, this is the trend that pushed off of the overnight low right here, trying to reach the other side, it had a break, and we're actively making that second leg up right here. We can already draw this measured move out. It's pushing up, it's above the EMA, and it's clearly holding above the EMA. So even though the two attempts are small, this still looks good for one-to-one because it's a smaller picture trade, but the overall, you're still using the bigger picture context. And so that's why I like this trade right here. It doesn't go much further than the target. That's why we go for these targets. We don't push them out too far. And so anyway, we continue on up here. And one thing I want to mention is, yeah, this downtrend, with its break and a new low, it is one on a bigger picture. And so it is still technically in play. And you could be getting a two-legged break before making the second leg down. And since we're in this range, you come off one side, expect to reach the other side, we can still play the range rules and this measured move. And as long as it's staying above the EMA and it's staying bullish, we can still confidently take longs as long as this measured move is in play. Once this measured move is met, like say price continues up and meets this measured move, obviously that doesn't happen, but once this measured move is met, you can view this as a completed two-legged break from this downtrend. So it'd be like downtrend, two-legged break, and then at that point it would be dangerous to go long. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so you're using that to go long. It would be, so that's basically what I'm trying to say here is you can use the momentum all the way up to this measured move, and it's basically a completed two-legged break once it reaches it. Much more likely to have a push lower. But we end up pushing lower early. It pushes past one-to-one, decent bit past, but then very quickly pushes back lower here. And so now this second leg down here, you can see it's downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower. So these are your two attempts at a new low for this downtrend right here. Now, again, we talked about this area a bit at the beginning. We have this trend line going up here, this downtrend line right here, and I want to go over this little short right here. As you can see, it says no fill on it. So this, you're just entering too low at this point, not only because of the trend line. Even if this trend line wasn't here, even though you have this bearish imbalance, just given how low this is closing right here, this is definitely a limit order trade, one that you'd want to use with a limit order. From here you have first entry long, second entry long, failure, but you don't have two, it's not like you have two measured legs back. The second leg up there just pushes up to the EMA, and then it immediately is closing nearly at the low of this entire move. So this is really just not a perfect reversal pattern. Again, I think it's fine to look for a short, but you would want to use a pretty heavy limit order here, especially when you consider the trend line. And so, anyway, push on lower here. We find resistance right here. Again, we talked about this area right here. It's okay to look for a long, but considering the bearish imbalance, you don't want to just expect price to push through both of these levels right here, which obviously you would need if you're entering with a stop above that bar right there. And so, limit order, you can definitely look for something with a limit order here. In the moment here, I did actually miss this because I was looking for a short in this area here, and then I kind of was just a bit distracted after, so I didn't even really look for anything here, but I should have been. So to the person who asked me that, was it Antoine? You're definitely on the right track looking for a long here, but it was, I noticed your target was a bit high up there. So anyway, we push up, we reach this level right here, we make this double top, and then we have a very sudden push lower here. Now, when you form a swing right here, you can look to extend it a little bit. Like I said earlier, I don't mind pushing target through a little bit of trend line, as long as the overall context is very good. Here we have stemming from right here, we have this uptrend, break, and then first attempt higher, second attempt higher. So two major attempts at a new high for this uptrend right here at a very clear bearish reacting resistance level, two resistance levels with, basically has room. It barely has to push through there. I really liked this short right here. This was a great looking short. I noticed that some of you all in Discord got it. I just checked before making this, and I was really glad to see that. So anyway, again, at this point right here, this downtrend at this point it doesn't have confluence with this downtrend. It's already played out. So downtrend, break, first attempt lower, second attempt lower, failure, but that failure was unable to pierce through this, and it's already getting a bearish reaction, pushing below the EMA before the entry. So anyway, it's just, again, the uptrend playing out with its two attempts. Great looking trade right there. We push all the way down to the overnight low. Again, this just shows how important these key levels are. You always want to mark your overnight high and overnight low. As soon as price met it, it just immediately reversed, and that was off of a major, push down. This is a major area, this uptrend playing out. And so the fact that price held up right here off this overnight low, it shows how important these key levels are. So anyway, push on up here. As you can see, after this big spike up, you get a leg down. I was really wanting to see the following. Let me just draw it out here. So after this spike up right here, and we get this leg down, what I would have loved to see is right around here after this push up is a second leg down. This would give us a failed second entry, starting from here. First entry short, second entry short, failure. But unfortunately, it just continued on up. We'd be much more likely to get a long down here. After a push up, we could even push into a smaller trade above the EMA. But either way, we would be much more likely to get a trade if price had made a second leg down, making a big picture failed second entry. It just, continued on up in this case. So, nothing here. We continue on up, make a second leg up here. So clearly we have two, whoops, I didn't mean to grab that. There we go. We have two legs up right here. First leg, second leg, nearly reaching the overnight high. And then right before we reach it, price has a sudden break. Now, these two legs on a bigger picture is clearly one leg. You can put it in one channel, zoom out a bit. You can see that's clearly a move up on a bigger picture, just one. And this is your break. So the uptrend has a break, and you can expect prices to attempt a new high. Here, you push on up here. You can see you have two attempts right there, and then you push back below the EMA. That's why I didn't like this higher low right here, just because from the top count one, it is just a first entry. And I didn't like how it got pretty significantly below the EMA, and then it wasn't, it didn't have the best bullish bar right after. So I just wasn't sure that this was a good entry, because the uptrend does already have a break and two attempts at a new high. Now, if a trend has a break and makes a couple attempts higher and then price fails to reverse, then yes, you do want to look for a second bigger picture leg. But this correction right here was not a big enough break from this overall to say that, okay, this is the break of this one leg right here. It still looks like two legs at this point, and this break was not significant enough to where I could say, oh, okay, we're about to start the second major leg up, especially given it pushed below the EMA. So at this point, it's kind of just iffy whether it's going to hold or continue reversing down, possibly making a second bigger picture leg down, as you can see like this. So that's why I didn't like that long right there. But as you can see, it does end up working. It doesn't mean it'll work out next time, but in this case here, it does end up pushing higher. And so we have uptrend, break, first attempt higher, second attempt higher, and then failure, sharp pushback below the EMA. Again, the uptrend is played out at this point, break, new high. Notice that with the bodies, it's really just a double top, but with a wick, it did make a new high. So it could be iffy. It might not act as played out. It might, but in this case here, it very clearly did act as played out because of the extremely bearish reaction that you got. So this is another great place for a failed second entry. Push below, couple legs back to the EMA. Let me just move this over here as an example. So, push down, first leg back, second leg back, first entry long, second entry long, failure. So this is just a great, place for a reversal pattern, especially with how, much bearish momentum you're getting here. But very quickly, it starts pushing back up here, and the EMA does not hold. It just pushes on up, makes this swing holding above it, and then continues higher. And so I don't like going long here again. You did just make a new high before having an extremely bearish move down, and it's still pushing below the EMA here. So, I would want to see a couple attempts down. That way this downtrend could get played out. Because even though it's just 3 bars right there pushing down, that's still a very sharp spike down. It is a downtrend. You can expect price to attempt a new low after it has a break. And so you still have to consider these things. Even though it's not a full-on channel here, this is still a downtrend. And so anyway, we push on up here. We make a new high pushing out of the overnight high. Another great place for a failed second entry. You can see on a bigger picture, this is really the new high for this right here. So uptrend, this whole thing, this break is more significant than this, and then you push up to a new high, and so then price attempts to reverse again. But clearly the overnight high, there's something bullish about it today, and price held, unable to fade back in. And so, unfortunately, it was just one attempt to fade, so you couldn't get in on that long here. So when you get one attempt to fade and it pushed significantly back in, that's really not a good sign for buying the breakout, because, again, price moves in pairs of twos. The chance of getting a second leg down is high, especially if you've already faded in, because that's telling you that, prices are bearish, you're pushing back in, you're expected to reach the other side, and so you don't know that it's going to break back out like that. You still need to see the 2 attempts to fade. And so anyway, let me just kind of unclutter this a little bit so I can draw out a wider channel, or not channel, I meant to say a wider measured move. So let me delete that, extend this to right here to the high. See, I almost did it again, like I was explaining earlier on the ES with the measured move over here. You can put it right there. In this case here, it wouldn't really matter because it's a double top, but you really want to put it to here. That's the real true trend right here, the bigger picture trend, and then this is your break and the start of that second leg right there. So you still have this measured move in play. It'd be great to get a couple legs back, retesting the overnight high. It's still close enough to do that, and also far enough away to where you can get 2 clear legs. So we could definitely get along there using the measured move with our using the momentum with the measured move off the overnight high could offer us a great long. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be done for the day. So anyway, I hope this video helped out. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And thanks for watching. Have a good day, everybody.